Welcome to This Is My Code. We're in Sin City at AWS reInvent and it's the last day. I'm here with Hampton from GameStop. Thanks for joining.
Happy to be here.
So have you had a good reInvent?
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Awesome. So a lot of our viewers are going to know GameStop. For those who might not, tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, we're an international retailer that specializes in video games and collectibles.
Great. So today, normally we look at architecture, but today we're going to look at the JSON and associated PowerShell that helps you bake AMIs, right?
Yes.
Now, before we go any further, we were talking before the shoot, and for the viewers, there's a really heated philosophical debate. Is it AMI or AMI? So what do you say?
We've been calling it AMI, but I heard Angie Jassy say AMI, so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have to adjust my take on that.
We'll try both during the session.
All right.
Okay, so first of all, before we dive into the code, tell us about the problem that you had to solve.
Yeah, so the first problem we were trying to solve was just having our AMIs live for as long as possible, or as long as we needed them to. We got in a situation where the AWS AMIs had been deregistered before we were ready for it, and we weren't able to scale our instances.
Okay.
And then the second problem we were trying to solve is baking in common configuration to speed up our instance launches.
Okay, so custom AMIs to get around the deregistration issue, and baking in functionality into custom AMIs. Are these Windows ones, Linux ones? What are you guys using?
We create both, but our code samples today are for Windows.
Okay, great. Yeah, great place to run Windows on AWS. So how is this actually architected? How is this sort of AMI factory you've built designed?
Sure. So it starts with an SNS topic that AWS supplies that notifies us when new Windows AMIs are available. We built a Lambda that subscribes to that topic, which kicks off an instance of a state machine execution for each of our supported operating systems.
And when you say state machine, are you using step functions for that?
Yes.
Okay, so when we publish a new AMI, it fires off an SNS, that in turn triggers a Lambda. Lambda then starts step functions and it steps through the process of baking the AMI?
Yes.
Got it. All right, so let's dig into the code then. So explain to me what we have on the screen here.
Right, so the first step in the state machine execution is using EC2 automations. And so this is a snippet from our automation document. And in here we've got the parameters. We use automation documents because it allows us to reuse the same document over and over again for different Windows operating systems.
Okay, so you support multiple versions of Windows, and this allows you to reuse the documents for all of them?
Yes.
Got it. So how do you actually do that? I see you have what looks like SSM parameter store values in there. What are you using those for?
Right, so that's actually what allows us to reuse the document for different operating system versions. So in this case, we've got a SSM. It's defaulted to an SSM parameter store value scoped to AMI factory, and here we're referencing the instance key pair. But we use this for all of our configuration steps in there, and we're able to reference different SSM parameter values for the different operating systems.
Great, I see you have subnet there too.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So step one is really putting your parameters that are passed into these automation documents into SSM and then referencing them from within the documents.
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay, so for the second snippet we're going to look at, you were telling me this is actually how you configure the instance or add features to Windows, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so step us through this snippet here. What is it doing?
Okay, so this is using the run command here to execute a PowerShell script against an instance that we launched in a previous step in the automation document. And so what we're doing is we've got Windows features that were passed in through a parameter.
Oh yes, it's a parameter. So where's this parameter actually stored? Where does it come from, the value of it?
That's one of the parameters that's stored in SSM. Okay,
so it came from that first document and it's passed in sort of chained.
Right, and we use a naming convention for that, so we may have 2012 features in one parameter and 2016 in a separate parameter.
Got it. Okay, so that gives you a lot of flexibilities. I see the reusability now. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we just looped through each of the features in this list here and install the feature onto the system. Okay,
so I see the PowerShell referencing the variables. What would be an example of a Windows feature that you're installing?
We use it for IIS or .NET functionality mainly.
Got it. And it's customized for whatever the AMI or whatever you're going to use that instance for?
Correct.
Got it. Okay. So I like how you're calling PowerShell, you're invoking PowerShell scripts from within the document. And I see sort of max temps and timeouts for viewers who might not be familiar. I guess that's to try it and try again if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't work the first time?
Correct. So we allow for 3 attempts to execute this code down here. And then and at the end, if it fails, this is relatively new functionality in the documents. This allows it to go all the way down to the step, so it'll clean itself up.
Okay.
And then we have a relatively large timeout in here to allow for however many features we want to install.
And if this does fail, does your team get notified? Do you get the logs? Like, how do you know if the instance gets terminated? What happens?
Right. So in the step functions that we execute, we poll for job completion, and then analyze for success or failure, and publish different SNS notifications based on the success of the job.
Great. And then over time, you might tweak the timeout or adjust the code or whatever, right? So.
Absolutely. We've done multiple iterations on that already.
Okay, cool. All right. So this is sort of installing features and getting the AMI prepped. But there's also a testing component. We talk a lot about infrastructure as code, and most people associate testing with traditional code, with Java. But in fact, you can test your code for infrastructure as well, right?
Yes, we try to, every bit of code that we create, we want to create a complementary test for that.
And so that basically means, is the AMI set up correctly? Did it actually respond to these commands, right?
Yes. Yeah, one of the things that we were running into was configuration issues with Windows features, and so the last thing we want to do is bake an AMI and it's not properly configured.
Understood. Okay, well then let's bring up that last snippet to show actually the validation, the testing process that you put the AMIs through.
All right.
Great. Okay, so walk us through this snippet. This is the validation snippet.
Yes, so in this case, we've launched a new instance off the AMI that we just created.
Yeah.
And then we're going to take those same Windows features that we used to configure the instance or the AMI, and then we're going to loop through those features here and make sure that they're installed. And if in the instance that one of them wasn't installed, we're going to throw an error here, which will fail the entire workflow.
Okay, so again, this features variable is actually referencing, like in the last snippet we saw, it sort of passed to this snippet as well, and so it can go through the same features.
Yes, so we have a separate validation document,
yeah.
And when we execute the automation from that document, we're passing in the features from the initial creation document.
Okay, cool. So this is also PowerShell?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, I see it now. And like we saw before, max attempts, timeout, so step functions will retry it a few times, and then again, you can dig through it if it doesn't work, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, I love how you're using code to automate deployments and sort of refine and make your AMI baking process better. It's nice to see how you're using the SSM parameter store. I think a lot of our viewers may not have thought to do that with step functions. The timeouts, the retries, the logging, this is infrastructure as code at its best. So thanks for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching. This is my code.